Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the exact startup costs, profit margins, and growth techniques behind three incredibly profitable business models. Look, if you've ever felt completely stuck in the traditional employment rat race, well, you're absolutely going to want to pay close attention to this. We're extracting some universal business mechanics from a few fascinating emerging market case studies. And as you'll see, we're going to show you exactly how everyday people, whether they're here in the US or abroad, are totally bypassing the corporate ladder to build massive wealth right from the ground up. So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. Escaping the crowded river. 2. Business 1. Wholesale distribution. 3. Business 2. High turnover food. 4. Business 3. High margin service. And finally, 5. Your path to limitless wealth. All right, let's jump right into part 1, escaping the crowded river, or why 99% of people fight for scraps.
You really face a fundamental choice in life. You can either fight for scraps in what we call a crowded river of money through formal employment, or you can step out into the limitless, uncrowded ocean of money found in entrepreneurship. In that river, you've got thousands of people elbowing each other for the exact same fixed salaries. You're dealing with fierce competition and these incredibly rigid wage ceilings. It is a brutal grind, and honestly, a lot of people just return empty-handed. But the ocean? The ocean has almost zero competition, and you can pull from it endlessly once you actually understand the underlying mechanics of supply and demand.
To put this into perspective, let's look at a number from the emerging market data we're analyzing today. 30 million. That's 30 million unemployed people competing for just 2 to 3 million formal jobs. But here's the thing. This exact same bottleneck exists right here in corporate America. People are blindly queuing up, kind of like ants, for opportunities that just don't exist in enough volume. They're aggressively competing for these tiny promotions and minimal raises. It shows exactly why the traditional path is fundamentally broken. Stepping away from that crowd to create your own localized demand, that is literally your first absolute requirement for success.
Moving right along to Section 2, Business 1, Wholesale Distribution and the Hub and Spoke Model.
Let's break down the unit economics for a second, using casual footwear as our example. Check out this massive gap between the 25 to 30 unit production cost at the factory and the 100 to 150 unit retail price. That spread? That represents an unbelievable profit margin, just waiting to be captured. And think about it, the product has year-round demand, it absolutely doesn't spoil the way food does, and literally everyone needs shoes. That margin is your playground. You don't need to invent some crazy new tech product, you just need to capture the spread between the manufacturer and the end consumer.
So, how do you do that? Well, an entrepreneur named Rana realized he didn't need to sign a massive, expensive commercial lease to tap into this margin. Instead, he used a highly efficient hub and spoke model. He would buy shoes wholesale directly from the factories at night and then distribute them the very next morning. He started out small with just 2 mobile vans, basically treating them as his retail storefronts. By aggressively managing the flow of his goods and reinvesting his daily profits, he scaled up to 15 vans and completely removed himself from the physical labor. He was earning a steady margin from each van every single day, unlocking a massive passive monthly income of $225,000 in his local currency. To put that in perspective for you, that's the equivalent of building a highly lucrative upper-middle-class income purely from arbitrage. He's basically just sitting in a chair, keeping the daily accounts in order. Now, on the flip side, entrepreneurs like Russell and Massam proved you can successfully tackle the other end of this coin, the manufacturing side. And they started with practically nothing. We're talking sometimes as low as $59,000 in local currency, which is just a few hundred US dollars. They employed skilled local workers who knew the trade perfectly, but just severely lacked their own capital. Then, they systematically scaled these tiny single-room operations into multi-million-dollar sales engines, netting massive monthly profits. How? Simply by continuously rolling their small profits right back into purchasing more raw materials and hiring more uncapitalized laborers. Because non-perishable goods like shoes carry almost zero risk of inventory spoilage, your downside is incredibly protected while your upside scales linearly with every single new worker you hire.
Okay, let's switch gears to Section 3, Business 2, High turnover food and hyper-local customer acquisition.
The macroeconomic proof for the food sector is just undeniably powerful. In our sources dataset, the number of food establishments absolutely exploded over 11 years, jumping from 275,000 to over 436,000. That creates a massive, multi-billion-dollar market. And if you think about the explosive rise of food trucks, ghost kitchens, and pop-up street food culture in major US cities over the last decade, you're seeing the exact same mechanics at play. People have to eat, and in high foot traffic areas, speed and convenience are absolutely king. I really love this quote because it captures the absolute magic of high turnover. An entrepreneur named Rajib borrowed just a tiny amount of cash, around 500 locally, to buy raw ingredients for traditional local pastries known as pithas. He set up his stand in a crowded, hyper-local spot, right where people were walking home from work. And get this, he sold out completely in just 2 hours. He fully covered his startup costs on day one. He then took that highly efficient 2-hour daily hustle and scaled it into a robust, reliable monthly income. It's honestly the perfect microbusiness.
And hey, these aren't just isolated incidents. We see local drink stands generating massive full-time incomes that completely rival standard corporate salaries. We're talking about a simple boiled egg seller clearing huge profit margins just by being in the exact right spot at the exact right time. Then you have our Rift, who started with a single shawarma cart just to protect his baseline income and quickly scaled that to 5 carts, employing a whole team to manage his operations. And maybe the most impressive? 3 corporate workers who started a side hustle food cart after seeing a street vendor completely out-earning their corporate salaries. They eventually quit their 9-to-5s entirely and scaled that single tiny cart into a massive multinational brand called Canas. The blueprint works everywhere, folks.
So, if you want to replicate this success in your own city, just follow these 3 actionable steps. First, don't overcomplicate it. Pick a single, high-demand item that is easy to make and serve quickly. Second, learn the actual mechanics directly from those already doing it. Observe their foot traffic patterns and prep methods. And third, deploy a very tiny amount of capital to get started. By starting small, the market gives you immediate feedback. It lets you learn real customer acquisition and unit economics through actual profit and loss, rather than risking a massive bank loan or your life savings on a huge brick-and-mortar restaurant.
All right, let's dive into Section 4, Business 3, High Margin Service, or as I like to call it, the 50 to 90% profit engine. Here, we are talking about service businesses. Think local salons, barbershops, or mobile car detailing services. Because your fixed costs, like basic rent, water, and electricity, are virtually non-existent compared to the constant year-round recurring demand, your margins become explosive. Once those minimal baseline costs are met for the month, you can keep up to 90 cents of every single dollar you make. It's basically converting 10 to 20 minutes of your time directly into almost pure profit, over and over again.
Now, in the service sector, you essentially have 2 distinct paths you can take. Path 2 is the operator. You learn the trade, invest a small amount of money for a chair and some tools, and you keep all the profit yourself. This is fantastic for immediate cash flow, but your personal time is capped. Path 1, though? That's the manager. And the best part is, you don't even need to know the trade yourself. You provide the strategic location, the marketing, and the tiny startup capital. Then, you just partner with skilled laborers who know the trade intimately, but maybe lack the funds or the business know-how to open a shop themselves.
The ultimate leverage here comes from offering a 50% profit share to those skilled workers. Boom, you transform instantly from a laborer into a true business owner. And you can actively replicate this model over and over. You find 3 skilled workers, open 3 low overhead locations, split the net profits 50-50 with each operator, and you can rapidly scale to multiple locations. You end up building a highly profitable, premium service empire without ever picking up a pair of scissors or a tool yourself. Your role shifts entirely to mastering customer acquisition and high-level growth strategy. Finally, Section 5, Your Path to Limitless Wealth and the Catalyst for Change.
So, we've deconstructed the mechanics of wholesale distribution, high-turnover food carts, and high-margin services. The overarching lesson from all these examples is remarkably simple, yet it's completely ignored by the masses. Escaping the crowd requires taking advantage of incredibly low barriers to entry. You honestly don't need a $1 million venture capital check to start. What you need is hyperlocal demand, an unglamorous but highly profitable niche, and the willingness to scale through smart delegation rather than endless manual labor. This is exactly how everyday people in America and across the globe are building real, sustainable financial independence.
The mechanics are proven, the startup costs are genuinely negligible, and these massive margins are just waiting to be captured. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider on your own journey as you decide your next steps in business. Are you going to stay fighting for scraps in the crowded river, or are you ready to build your own path out to the ocean? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.